Hey everybody. I hope everyone is having a great day, and thank you so much for coming along to listen to me and Jason waffle a little bit about what we've been doing and to give you guys all some updates about progress and what we're all doing. So yeah, if everyone say hi to Jason. You've not seen him in a wee while. He's just been slaving away, working hard. So yeah, Jason, how's everything going? How you getting on?
Definitely emphasis on the slaving. No. Um, but yeah, doing good. Progress is picking up, and we're starting to see the kind of formations of some of the foundations, which is really encouraging to see.
Yeah, because like teams of size is obviously growing all the time, which is cool. And just in general, just it's really nice to see some of the progress, even just some simple things, just like the animators, just some of the work that these guys are doing, and just putting together some really cool stuff. And we're hoping, in would I be right in saying that hopefully in like a couple of weeks' time we'll have a playable core loop and a new map, which our map guy's working on that just now. He actually sent me some updates today, which I'll need to send to you,
Mm.
which is starting to take shape and look pretty cool. So yeah, would I be right in saying that we're what a couple of weeks away from that? Or do you
Yeah,
want do you want do you want do you want to
that's
describe more to everyone like exactly what that is?
sure. We're looking to. We're still in the sort of prototyping and proof of concept stage. So we have to. What that means is we have to prove the ideas that we've written in documentation in the past. We need to prove in practice that what we had thought in theory is indeed fun in a practical setting. Um, Now, obviously, we can't take forever for this, so we're developing a game mode that is much faster, much more fast paced than what our aim for a launch kind of flagship game mode would be. But it reflects a lot of the same along the same veins and hits on the same notes that the sort of flagship game mode would have, and it enables us to see, okay, does this make sense? Is it fun? Is it cool? Um, I think I outlined a lot of this in the most recent dev diary. Um, Essentially, three teams of three drop into a map. The objective is the team with the most Modex parts at the end of the game wins. How do you gain more Modex parts? By fighting and killing other players and kind of extracting out of the map to effectively sort of bank them and then reinsert back into the map. And that that kind of miniaturized microcosm of a loop of our flagship product will reflect, hopefully, and the main game mode as well as prove our concepts.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to actually just being able to easier, like in an easy way, jump into more games with you guys and actually play what's been worked on. Like to
Mm.
me, that's that's a big deal. That's because it's we've been working on this for a while now, and you know when we went to Dubai initially and we went to the show, we had like a nice video where we were able to show off some of the stuff that we've been working on, but like because we've been adding to the team and we've now got like good animator, we've got some really talented people working with us. We're now able to actually just take that up a notch, which is great. It's really exciting. But what we need to do is answer some of the Twitter questions. Have you picked any out that you like the look of?
Yeah, I've a couple that I've kind of screen grabbed. We can kind of do one each and go from there. Tom at TD Kenny 80 asks, "What's been the most challenging part so far to make the game, and when could we see a sneak peek of what's already been rendered in UE5 graphics? Could we see the dev playground? Could we see what the dev playground looks like in UE5, please?" So to answer your sort of UE5 point there, Unreal Engine 5, we're not currently in Unreal Engine 5. We're in UE4 4.27 because we haven't migrated yet. We plan to do so um, probably around the time that we move from a prototype into a production stage, because that's being in UE5 doesn't sorry, prototyping and proving our concepts doesn't depend on being in UE5, right? we know we want the final product to be made in Unreal Engine 5, but we're not at that stage yet. And it doesn't make sense just now to dedicate time to porting it over. But the most challenging part of making the game so far, this is fairly subjective, but for me, it's planning and deciding in what order to make all the various parts in order to all its kind of component parts to make the game. You've kind of got a mountain in front of you, and there's 100 different ways you can trek up it, and it's trying to pick the right one. And of course, you're not going to be able to do that with occasionally slipping and falling, but that for me is the most challenging part.
I think it's, in general, just making games is difficult. There's nothing easy about this process. I think one thing that people forget is, especially people in the crypto space, is that there's a difference between making a game and making a good game and making something that people actually want to play. And that's what we're doing. We're working on building a game that, even if you took the whole crypto aspect out of it, that it stands on its own 2 feet and is actually fun and makes people want to play and engage with and come back and play again and tell their friends about and get them into play. That is, for us, is exactly what it's all about. There was a question here from Mick that says, is there any other planned utility for the token outside of the game, or is the token exclusively for QuantumWorks games? Is this something that has been considered at all? Just now, the token is exclusively for our games. But that doesn't mean in the future that, with what I'd spoken about before, with our devs on the blockchain side of things, our long-term goal is to be bringing out our own blockchain that's just dedicated solely for this process. Because just now, yes, there are blockchains out there, but none of them are dedicated to gaming. And gaming is perfect for the blockchain and perfect for the correct use of NFTs and what NFTs can bring to gaming. So long term, that's the goal. But as I was saying, the token itself just now is exclusively just for our games. There's another question here from Chris, actually, which I feel is quite a good one. It says, with the challenging market, holding a bag is difficult. What incentives can diamond handers get for keeping their bags? Is there a plan to lower the supply? The total supply is too high and it looks like a meme supply. Well, we made the supply 1 trillion, and what we wanted to do with that was I would rather have too much than not enough. Because if there is not enough of a coin, then it becomes very difficult to balance certain items or certain costs of items in game, and especially when you start, say, looking at it from a long-term perspective of multiple games using the same token. So, like I said, it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And when you don't have a mint function built in, which we don't, because I wanted to give it extra security and extra trust to the contract, that's why we have the supply that we currently have. And yeah, the market is an interesting place right now. It's up and down, it's side to side. But ultimately for us, and I've said it before and I'll say it time and time again, I don't really care if the market goes up or down. It can do whatever it wants. At the end of the day, when we're finished building and we are live and we're operating, it doesn't mean anything. It really doesn't. And for us, we have fiat backing coming through our raise, which we're doing. And we don't rely just on the volume of our token. So yeah, it's interesting. But with regards to what diamond handlers can get for keeping their bags, come the end of this month will be the last airdrop, which is akin to what all the other airdrops were for diamond handlers. And what we're looking at doing is moving on to a system which not just rewards large holders, and it doesn't just reward people based on the amount of qubit that they're holding. The new system will reward based on giving people NFTs, which can then be traded for items in game that are not items which would affect mechanics. So things like NFTs which could be traded for player space or cosmetics or things like this, or really unique items that they just wouldn't be able to get any other way. And what we're doing is, so instead of it being the amount of qubit that someone's holding, it's the amount that they have invested in dollar value, whether that is at the top or at the bottom, it's a dollar value. And if they are diamond handing it and they're holding it, that's it. That's what counts. So, and we're the tiers will start from, like, I think it's, I'm just going to check the numbers on it, because Electro sent it to me and it was pretty spot on. It might get tweaked. It probably will. Nothing is final until it's out there and it's working. Let me just have a quick wee look. I think it's in here. Yeah, so like the first one, which would be like bronze tier NFT, will be for like $500. The next one, silver, at 1,500. Gold tier is 4,000 USD. Platinum tier is 10,000. 25,000 USD for diamond tier, and 50,000 USD for quantum tier. These numbers I've already spoken to Electra. We're going to shift them about just a little, and you will be able to trade like a certain number of bronzes to get a silver, or a certain number of silvers to get a gold, etc. And each month you will get one of these NFTs. So if you're holding $500 worth of Qubit, if that was what your spend was, then you will get a bronze NFT every month, and then you'll be able to exchange them and move their way up. So it's cool. It's a cool system, and it'll be a beautifully made NFT. We've got a really cool artist working on it who we've worked with before, who's putting these together for us. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about that, and it's a nice way to reward not just our big boys, not our guys in the middle. It rewards everyone, and it's a nicer fader system. Jason, have you got any other questions that you picked up on Twitter?
Yeah, I do. A couple of them you've answered. I'll just run through this one quickly and then do another one. Someone had asked what makes the Project Quantum's games different from other crypto games, and how big is the impact for players. The biggest thing is that as far as we've seen the crypto community so far, it's that they're simply a vessel to accrue more money. They're not there as a means to play a game and have fun, while also having cryptocurrency aspects integrated in.
It's such a shame though, isn't it? Because it almost just looks like a cash grab from so many different angles.
Almost.
Yeah, it does. It's a straight up cash grab.
That was just a quick one because we kind of already answered it. Why Noctis asks, what stage in development are you in? I guess I've kind of already answered this. Prototyping and proof of concept to prove out what we have written in past, to prove our theory and practices. Hopefully we plan to be in this for a good number of months until we start moving into production. What is a good number of months? You're probably looking at like, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, probably in that range.
Well, for vertical slice, because that was what we were looking at.
For going through the motions of prototyping and proof of concept, and then starting to solidify things. Yeah. It's a lot of fun. There's a cool question here actually, which is from Brandon, which is at Devil Leather. He asked, when will we be able to invest into quantum work? So I think he's relating to what I'd spoken about before, which is that as part of the raise which we are doing, the second part of that is a full retail product, which anyone in the United States or elsewhere will be able to buy. I kind of borrowed this idea, like I'll happily admit that, like it's a friend of mine back in Scotland, he owns Brewdog, and they did a really cool and interesting thing, which was when they went out to do a raise because they wanted to rapidly expand the business, they did a thing called Equity for Punks. And it was a massive hit because they had a really good community, they had a very good following. And what we are wanting to do is do a thing just called Equity for Gamers. And it's super exciting because it allows everyone to just not come in on the coin, but come in on the overall progress and have a share of the business moving forward. And that will be, once all the details are finalized and that's available, it'll be out there.
and I'll be able to talk more about it in detail at that point. So let's just have a quick wee flick through. We've answered that one.
Yeah, I've
Answered
got
that
one here. At Ed Milson Matos 5 asks, how long until the first version of the game? I love you've given me a bit of a gift there with being ambiguous as to what warrants the first version of the game. But someone had kind of answered the question below, I guess. But for those of you who haven't seen that question in writing, probably ideally 2024. What exactly that version looks like, I'm not going to sit here and say that it's going to be the V1 launch product and that it's going to be it's going to have everything we absolutely ever wanted and could want and even greater more. It's going to be something that we develop with kind of great passion and build upon in hopefully many years to come.
Yeah, and it's this whole process though for me, I just love because I'm actually able to build something phenomenal and something really cool and groundbreaking and game changing, literally, with my friends, and it's exciting. I still remember the first conversation we had about this, where I phoned you up. I was like, Jason, I've got a really good idea, but you're going to have to convince Magnus he's not a believer in crypto. There's a couple of cool questions which have just been sent by one of my admins from Milton F, and it's like three separate questions, and they're quite important, so I'll run through them. The first one's how confident is Quantum Works on securing the full funding from the VC to complete the project? Very. I have absolutely no doubt in my mind. We already have a lot of people lined up who are waiting to invest once the share purchase agreement is complete and our AGGM setup is done. Like, they are literally on the hook, ready to rock and roll. So I'm not worried about that in the slightest. Second question was, are there any concerns from recent market activity that funding may now be at risk? No, to be honest, because investors who are looking to spend good money are not looking for a short-term solution. They're not looking to double their money overnight. What they're looking at is companies or ideas or prospects where the product itself is game-changing for the better part, something that they know and they can look at and safely invest their money in, knowing that they're going to get a return on it in years to come. That is what large investors do. They're not trying to make a quick buck. So to be honest, as I said before about the markets, it doesn't affect us. I'm not worried about it at all. And his third one was, what contingency plans do you have in place if full funding plans fail? We always have the token. We always have be able to put out more progress, which generates more revenue on the coin. But to be honest, I'm not worried about not getting it through. I'm completely confident. We have so much interest and investment in our company that it's not a worry for me at all. Jason, you get any more?
Yeah, I've just been looking at the chat. I guess there's been a little confusion. So I guess we are. I guess in the broader scheme of things, producing something, right? But someone was asking, so production won't start until 2023, and then I thought he just said production phase won't start for another 7 to 9 months. That's just how you define certain cycles or phases in a full project life cycle. Right now, we're in the prototyping and proof of concept stage where we're coding, we're building a game in order to prove what we've written down in paper. And what I mean by production phase is ideally, although not necessarily all the time, you've gone through the prototyping and proof of concept stage, then you reach that, you get confident enough with what you've made during that, and then you start kind of locking that in and going, okay, we're now producing everything to what's called production quality, which means is what it should look like or feel like or operate like in the final product.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a really cool little question which popped up here, and it's a nice one actually, from Montez on YouTube, and he says, "How is the health and well-being of the team? We need the team to have a good work-life balance, sleep, etc., to keep the project going in a healthy fashion." This is one thing that I've implored from the start is a healthy work-life balance. Because if you don't have it, you don't have a healthy team, you don't have a healthy mindset, and we are all creative people. If we do not have that balance, then we can't actually be creative because it just stops you from doing what you enjoy and what you love and getting those creative juices flowing. So, like for example, we work Monday to Friday, full like all day as it goes, and then on Fridays it's a half day because I actually want my team and my guys and everyone who works on this to actually be able to spend more time with their families and their friends at the weekend, because the last 2 years has been a shit show. No one's been able to do exactly what they want. So being able to actually do that and enjoy that is really important. And to be honest, it makes no difference to the progress because a week's worth of work still gets done. We could take the whole day off on a Friday and a week's worth of work could still get done. But it's so important. And because, like, say for example, if you've got that half day and a Friday every day, and it was actually you that said this to me, Jason, it was you really enjoy it because you're able to get all the crap that you would normally have to do on a Saturday morning done on a Friday afternoon, and then you've actually got the weekend to enjoy.
You're hoovering, you're washing dishes. For me, it's emptying cat litter trays, like doing all the shit you don't want to be spending your weekend doing. It frees up a lot of your time, more than you'd expect a half day would.
Yeah, it does. It just makes such a difference. And the thing is, for us, because we obviously, Caitlin and I and kids moved out to Dubai, and on a Friday the schools actually finish at midday, and that's just a thing. So we have to finish at midday. But we're, from my perspective, and Caitlin as well, we are working all the time. Like compared to like the other part of the team, we don't really get as much time off as everyone else because we're constantly on the go. We're constantly answering questions. We're dealing with our admins and our like community managers, all that. So it doesn't really stop for us, but we are still able to get a really good work-life balance out here. Sort of the standard of living in Dubai is exceptionally high. Even compared to the UK, it's a really, really nice place to live. Let's just see if there's any more floating about. Let's just have a quick look. Have you got any?
I've got one here. This is just from the chat. Slug with 3 Gs, because 1 G wasn't enough, has asked, excited for Project Quantum! Is there a new game in production, or at least ideas in pipeline? Whoa there, boy. Let's just calm down. I'm sorry.
Pump the brakes.
Yeah, I'm sorry if this seems like FUD, but I just want to concentrate on the one we currently have.
The thing is, people just don't understand how long it takes to make a game. Like, it's something which I've seen since we started this, is just not fully understanding like a full life cycle of something of this size. Like, we could have made something much more simple, but even saying that, right? And think about a 2D card game, like, Gwent, Jason. Like,
yes.
Like, people think that that's a simple game. That took what, 3 years? Gwent took three and a bit years.
Yeah, well, it took 3. I remember us going through this, looking at how long it took Gwent to make, and it became its own standalone product eventually. And I think it did take, I think it was two or 3 years to make the kind of standalone version, this dedicated thing. But of course, if anyone's played The Witcher 3, they'll know that Gwent was its first iteration was already made as a mini game inside another one. So even with a kind of a
working game.
A working game, a fully proved out concept, which of course they built upon. It still took, 3 years to make into a full standalone product.
No, which is crazy because I think people think, oh, you could just knock something like that up in a few months, but you
Yeah.
can't. You can't. There's so much that goes into it. There's two questions on here, and there's one which is very important. And it says the question is, does Jason have shelves of Warhammer behind him?
Yes, is the answer.
Uh, he's very good at
Actually,
painting.
yeah. If my camera was angled slightly differently, like there's actually paints and miniatures here. There's one I've just finished that's currently drying.
Can you show it?
Also,
Can you show us a favorite?
um,
Have you got anything
yeah,
that's like reachable?
yeah, they're reachable. Um, let's see. This guy's pretty fun. Um, this guy's pretty fun. Um, we'll take this guy as well. This is it's one of my Warhammer models. It's like a guy on a jet bike, but I don't know how
You
well
only
the camera will focus. But I've done like a sort of marble effect on the front of it. Don't know if you can see.
see if you go
Don't know how well that will
pull it
come
back a little
across.
bit, pull it closer to you.
I don't know how
Yeah,
well it comes across.
not well,
Not well. Oh well. Okay.
which is really
That's fine.
it's doing your painting a disservice.
Yeah. Um.
Uh,
Yeah. Yes, I definitely collect a lot of Warhammer, and I play quite a lot as well.
um,
Thanks for asking.
a question from HL, which is, what's the reason you choose to implement a 10% tax in and out? Wouldn't this deter investors? Well, that's how we finance the project to date. And that is how we also will continue to finance the game after its launch. We don't plan to sell much, if any, items directly to players. Our long-term goal is for players to sell to players with the items that they find, the items that they win, the items that they craft, all of these different things. And it's the transaction of a player selling to another player, and we just take 3.5% of that as fiat, and we take 3.5% as tokens, which we then pump back into the game for PvP matches, for finding a treasure trove of qubit in game, and also 3% goes back to everyone who's holding the token. So it incentivizes people to hold, and it incentivizes people to trade, and that is why we have the 10% tax, and that will never change. Like, it just won't. I don't like. I've never liked the idea of. Well, I've said it before loads of times when people have asked a similar question, which was the whole reason that we started doing this. A lot, apart from the fact I thought it was a good idea, was to get rid of loot boxes, and it's a way of doing it is by making players trade with each other. But I didn't want to sell directly many items. There's probably a few things that we'll sell, but it's not going to be much. But that's why we have the 10% tax.
Yeah, even if we were to sell items, we have, especially myself and Magnus, have a fairly hard lines that we would like to maintain, that if we are selling items directly from us to players, then they remain aesthetic or cosmetic.
Yeah, nothing that ever affects mechanics or gives a player an unfair advantage over another.
Yeah.
Like, that's not what we want to be doing. Like, for example, we've talked about the player spaces, like the upgrading of player spaces. That's something that we will sell. We will sell like an upgrade for people to buy a bigger player space, to have a cooler apartment or a place to stay and show off their wares. That doesn't affect people going into the game and shooting each other. If I was to sell the BFG 9000 gun in the store, that's game breaking. Absolutely game breaking, and we can't do that. Like, if every single game that has ever been like a pay to win scenario has crashed and burned horribly, and even from like the biggest games developers in the world, has never worked. It just doesn't, and people get so pissed off at it. And you just see all this bad feedback from the community where they're like, this is appalling, I want to play a game and enjoy it, and not get pwned with a guy that's just pumped $1,000 into buying everything in the shop. Never want to go down that route. There was a cool wee thing from here, and it was Montez, and he said, did I hear craft? And it's like, that's part of the game, right? Can you tell us more about like how crafting will work?
It certainly is part of the game. It will make the foundation for it may very well be the core, or the keystone. Let's say the keystone and the foundation for the in-game economy. Um, if you don't know what a keystone is, it's if there's a stone bridge, the keystone is the one in the center that holds it all together and stops it collapsing. Anyway, enough for that.
People never realize that, and it's a really cool factoid. Because people are like,
Yeah.
keystone, and then they never know where it comes from. And it's always the center point one that's like slightly weirdly shaped that holds everything together. Yeah.
Crafting. It will form the main basis for the in-game economy. As we were both saying kind of moments ago, we're not really going to be selling items per se out of certain genres or categories such as aesthetic or cosmetic. But of course, we're talking about Modex parts and guns and weapons and armor. So where are all these parts coming from? A large portion of the game is about kind of gathering, exploring, treasure hunting, finding parts, materials, resources or blueprints to then, try and attempt to safely extract without losing it or getting caught. Heading back to Jericho, going to the sort of the Modex blacksmith. That's not even a thing, but I'm just kind of making that up on the spot, and kind of crafting your new, very own, unique super soaker shotgun or whatever you want it to be.
Super soaker shotgun.
Yeah.
Everyone remembers the green and yellow super soaker.
Yeah. And when you do so, the idea, and one of the things we need to prove out, because we don't need to just approve ideas design-wise, we need to prove them artistically and technologically, is that when you craft something, at that point of it being kind of finalized as an item, it's also minted as an NFT to then be traded on the in-game marketplace. Or use it yourself, and you've now got this much more powerful shotgun that you can take into your next game.
Yeah, exactly. And do you know what the cool thing about this is that, and it's still kind of, because it's Caitlin that keeps reminding me about it, is that right now on YouTube, and it's become a really big thing over like the last few years especially, is like YouTube gamers or Twitch streamers who are playing games and they're earning a living by playing games and streaming content, etc. Like, we're getting to the stage in gaming that, like, where people will be able to literally play games and earn a living, like, which is mental to think about. Because if someone had said that to me when I was a teen, I would have been like, that's the job that I want. And it would have been great. But that's the reality. That's where this is going. And being at the forefront of it is a lot of fun. And trying to just ultimately make a fairer play space for players and give them the ownership of their items back. Because it was like, how many times have we gone into like this conversation where we've spoken about players going into shops or in game and they spend $50 and they don't own anything? And I'm just like, as soon as that game gets switched off, all of that value, that perceived value, because that's what it is, it's perceived value, it's not value, is gone. And that cool skin that you were playing with is worth nothing. So it's cool. It's nice being at the front of this and being able to go forward. Let's just have a look. Going to answer a couple more and then call it a night because I have food to eat.
I've got a couple in the bank. I've got.
Go for it.
So Daniel Kusovsky, sorry if I'm butchering your last name.
Solid name.
Asks, will the gameplay of the game be similar to Escape from Tarkov's? Tarkov or another similar game to that, Hunt Showdown.
Love that.
Big inspirations for us. If you don't know what Escape from Tarkov is or Hunt Showdown, basic premise is you go into a map, you find resources, and if you die, you lose what you currently have equipped as well as what you found. At a very base level, and we've taken a lot of inspiration.
Hunt Showdown is actually, I would say it's super harsh sometimes, because you can go in with a really nice character that you've buffed up and you've worked on and you've got to a really nice point and get absolutely smoked. like with someone who's got like
Yeah.
a long range accurate rifle, and you've not been sneaky enough, and he's just been waiting, and you're done.
Yeah,
Um,
a lot of that is because you lose everything in Hunt Showdown if you die. You lose your character and what you currently have on you, but also the time to kill is it can be one headshot. So the time to kill can be almost nothing. Um,
it's so much fun though. It's such a great game.
it's extremely intense. The sound design in Hunt Showdown goes uh,
A long
uh,
way.
is a big kind of factor in that.
Well, what is
Sound is massive.
the sound design in Hunt Showdown is arguably one of the best sound designs in a game that I've ever seen, because
Yeah.
it's so driven around sound. Like, you have to be quiet. And you can hear enemies just even if because it's there's AI involved in the game as well. It's not just players, and a lot of it revolves around the AI. And it's just I implore, if anyone out there wants to go and play it, I implore you to, especially if you've got a good group of guys or girls or people who you play with, download the game and then play it. You'll really enjoy it. If you like FPSs that are tactical and you have to think, and it will, if you play it in the dark with headphones, will potentially scare the shit out of you as well. It's got all the little elements that I love.
It's a great gem in kind of recent game development history.
Yeah,
It's a great one.
and it was quiet as well. It wasn't like some big hoo-ha around marketing done for it or anything. It's just slowly built up a really passionate player base over time. And I really enjoy it. The team that works on it are doing a really, really good job.
Yeah.
Where was this question? I just missed it. I suppose actually, in line with that, what you were saying, Jason, I always say to people is like, oh, so what sort of game are you making? And I was like, well, cool. If you take Escape from Tarkov, Destiny 2, a little bit of Hunt Showdown and Apex Legends, and they had this weird child, we're probably pretty close to that. But the thing is, from a gameplay point, but our IP is so unique. Like Randolph, who we took on as our new, what's his title? Environmental art director. Is that right? It's not environmental. It's
Visual art director.
Visual art director. That's it. And he's really put into light, because obviously we've been working with One Pixel, who are still doing an amazing job. And he was like, the IP is exceptionally cool, the world building is great, but ultimately we have an entire planet and everything to design and make and concept and think about, like how people are eating, how are they working, how are they living, like what is a social interactions like how does that affect the game, like what is foliage like on the planet, what's the environments like, what are all these spaces like. And he's amazing, he's really good, and he's just a good guy, even though he's had like a stinker of a cold for like the last week and a half and sounds almost like he's wearing a nose plug when he comes out of the swimming pool because he's so congested. But bless him, he's brilliant at what he does. Any other ones that you picked up on?
Yeah, I've got one. I'm just scrolling through chat. Imran Ali Farzal asks, will the map randomize drops of items and crafting materials? Yes, but to a greater degree. We want to do something slightly different with our maps, where it's not a set, it's not a static piece, so to say, where it is one map that doesn't change, like in PUBG or Apex Legends, for example. Their maps are static. We want to have essentially modular maps where we have different arrays of different modules. It might be building modules, grassy modules,
Procedurally
modules.
generated maps.
Yeah, and then take these modules, if you think of them as Lego bricks, and kind of fit them all together, and then in your next game they'll be kind of broken apart, rearranged, and put in a different way. Because a lot of the theming is kind of treasure hunting and exploration, in that sense, will very quickly dwindle away on a static map. Particularly if you're playing for long periods of time. And we want to keep that sense of discovery, but also it doesn't give players with a long playtime advantage, or much more of an advantage over players who are kind of starting out and still feeling things out. They're not going to be able to figure out the hyper efficient loop route runs, and they're not going to be able to find the best ambush spots to prey on to play on new players. And the reasons I've described there is why we're going in that direction.
Yeah, it's like you couldn't have. Like, I think our long term goal is to have these procedurally generated maps, and maybe at the start we'll have some pre-built maps at the start. But then, as Jason was saying, procedurally generated is the way that we want to go. Because
that's the end goal. Yeah.
That's the end goal, yeah, for sure. There was a funny comment here from Crypto King that says, "I hate the crow's sound," though. Like, which he's obviously talking about Hunt. Crypto King, you only hate the sound of the crows because you obviously miss them and run into them. Right, what else have we got? Let's just answer.
The same person, actually.
Okay.
Crypto King 0512. Are there different game modes with or without? Sorry for that.
That just literally sounded like someone just drove right through your living room.
Yeah, for some reason Google Meets doesn't take into account the mic software that I run my mic through, like the one you linked me to a while ago, where you can kind of tweak it. So it's just like the raw mic for whatever reason. So it's super sensitive. But yeah, Crypto King asks, are there different game modes with or without NPCs, PvE, PvP, or PvP? Yeah, so in our sort of launch product, we want to have two, I guess rather than modes, it's more styles, and we're kind of calling them PvE and PvP and PvE. One of them, the PvE version, which stands for player versus environment, for anyone who doesn't know, where the loops or items you find, the creatures you discover, are dialed down slightly. So what I mean by that is the loot may be slightly less plentiful, or perhaps it's not as rare as other game styles, and the creatures you face might not be as tough or dangerous in some areas. But then in the PvP mode, all we do is we kind of take that dial and amp it up, and also add in the factor of players, players that can do all the same things you can, as well as try and hunt and kill you. So the PvE version acts as a slightly, I wouldn't class it as relaxing, but it's the best word that's coming to my mind right now. A mode where you can kind of decompress slightly after a long day and just kind of have fun with your friends, and in a slightly less intense scenario, but also still play the game and interact with the community and trade and crafting and all that. It's not necessarily a lesser experience. The PvP mode, the items may be rarer, they might be more plentiful, and the reason for that is you have other players that may be just as good at shooting things as you are, and sometimes they may shoot at you, which isn't pleasant, but you have that greater degree of intensity, so that's why items, materials, things you can find might be rarer. Yeah.
It's cool just being able to offer just some different modes and just let players enjoy the game how they want as well.
Yeah.
I'm just going to see if there's one last one, and then I'm going to call it a night. What have we got? I think there's these questions are split across so many different things. Can I just say though, that how cool was that animation that we got from
Natalia?
Yeah, with the drop pod.
Yeah, very very cool. Very very impressed. I mean, that's the first version that I saw of it. There have been other variations as it's been kind of tweaked and feedbacked on.
Yeah.
But for a first iteration, it was very good.
There's a question that came up there. It was are there plans to partner with Star Citizen to move their game into crypto space? No.
I think they have enough money to do that already if they wanted to.
Yeah, well,
or they should have.
Well, that's what happens when you have $500 million.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's one of my pet comedy hates. Right, well, look, I'm just going to say a massive thank you to everyone for coming along tonight, chilling out with us, asking some really cool questions. Jason, thank you very much for giving up part of your evening on a Saturday for doing this.
It's a pleasure as always.
I appreciate it. I just want to say a massive thank you as well to all of our admin team who do such an amazing job of moderating the chat, helping filter our questions, get questions over to me, get questions over to Jason, Caitlin, everyone who helps us out. And it's such a humbling experience. This whole thing has been a humbling experience. And there was one interesting one. It was like with people asking, like, are we going to be doing something for our anniversary, which is coming up in like a week's time? Yeah, we're working on some bits and bobs. It might be slightly later than the anniversary, but the best gift that we could give people is not rugging them when it comes to the fact that the LP unlocks. That's the best gift that like any crypto project could give people. And we're here for the long haul. We're dedicated to making something that is groundbreaking and incredible and awesome. And yeah, thanks to all of you, because if it wasn't for all of you guys, if it wasn't for our investors, if it wasn't for people buying our token and holding it and believing in the project, we wouldn't be here. So yeah, big shout out to all of you. Anyway, have a great night, everyone, and I'll no doubt I'll catch you in the next one. So I'll see you soon.